Welcome to pharmacology.
Yes.
I hope you can all hear
Go
me.
for it, please.
I can hear every one of you. I have a hard of hearing, so I have hearing aids in, but I can read lips. I had a couple of students in the back were sitting there and talking about the thing, and then I popped up and said, "You're giving misinformation." So I can see what you're saying. How many of you are LVNs? You have a little bit of an advantage, but not a lot. Okay? Past students have come in, oh yeah, we know this. Well, I'm going to trip you up. Not on purpose, but it'll happen. Okay? But then also what I will do is those of you who are LVNs, I'm going to be calling on you for experiences and applications and so forth as well. Okay? Not putting you on the spot, but I've got to use that as an example. How many military do we got here? All right. Very good. Welcome. I used to be one of those. Then I got old. Welcome. Let me see if I can make this thing work. Oh, by the way, I pace around a lot. I don't stand behind the podium. I can't stand podiums. Oh, boy. How does that screen look? That screen looks terrible too, doesn't it? Let me see if this will fix it. Usually what I have to do is get somebody to stand on the table and push a button for me. Let's see if this works. No, it doesn't. Oh well, now I've done it. Okay. We'll see how much shows up. If you don't show up very well, I may just raise the screens and play off the wall. Medicines have come a long way, by the way. Centuries ago, you'd have somebody who said, "Oh, here, eat this root. It'll help your stomach." Ate the root, died. Next guy, don't eat so much. But we've gone through a progression of natural to highly pharmaceutical back to natural. We really have. We have the whole gamut. We have alternative medicine. We have medication that you get from your pharmacist. I mean, it's quite a gamut that we have to go through. I worked for a physician for a short time that believed more in home remedies than pills. For example, for example, my daughter had chicken pox, and the doctor would give calamine lotion and Benadryl and Tylenol, and all we did was we gave Tylenol for a fever and put her into an oatmeal bath. You get a cup of oatmeal and a little bit of water, and then you bathe her with all that until it dries, and you rinse it off, and she never itched the entire time she had chickenpox. That's an old home remedy, still being used today. We'll be looking at some of those as we go along. This was the famous ingredient. They discovered opium. It's like we have ibuprofen. Cures everything. Back then, cures everything. Or at least you really didn't care once you had your dose. This is medication with cocoa leaves. Some of these aren't showing up. I'm going to have to kick the computer later on. Major ingredients, codeine and morphine. If one don't get you, the other one will. Then we have the ever popular cocaine toothache drops for your children. I guess it would be the same thing as now going on a long trip and giving your kid Benadryl. I just gave him a toothache drop. Take care of it. Pardon? Yes. These aren't. I have two sets. I have student PowerPoints and then I have mine because some of mine have answers on them and I didn't want to share. Who is your professor? Here it comes. Oh, this thing's messed up. What can you expect? What can you expect? Let me see if we can get it on there. Or maybe my ability to run technology. I don't know.
It's a screen.
Yeah, it's the.
It's not the screen. It's a projector. As we go through some of these, we'll take a break and I'll get up there and see if we can. I'll get one of you to get up there. I'm too old to do that anymore. What this says is I have an open door policy. If you have an issue or a concern, my door's open. I do have office hours and I appreciate if you use those, but I'm usually here first thing in the morning. So if you have a real dying issue that you cannot hold on to, I'm usually in my office by 6 o'clock. So if you want to come on in and sit down and bring me a cup of coffee, I'll listen to you all day long. And not just for pharmacology, I'm there for any issue that you have except for administrative. If you're talking about money or grades or so forth, where you talk to somebody else. They have more stuff than I do. Come to the class to learn, please. Come prepared. In the orientation, on Blackboard, I put announcements and say, please read ahead of time. So that when we have our classes, you know what's going on. Rather than sitting there and seeing them for the first time on the screen and saying, okay, well, what is he going to talk about? Well, if you even have skim, I don't expect you to memorize the chapters when you read, but skim through it so that you can understand what you're reading or what we're talking about. It'll help you to understand when we go through each of the two different medications. I expect honesty and integrity. On tests, the one thing you got to remember is the person next to you isn't as smart as you think they are. And my apologies to the neighbor next to you. Do your own work. We've had a big issue with this. At the National Student Nurses Association meeting in Pittsburgh, I sat at a round table with 30 other colleges, and we were discussing integrity. And 100% cheating on tests. Most of them, they were getting the test off the internet. Some of them are getting them right from the publishers. And it wasn't, you know, and then what they would do is they would study the test and not the material. They'd get into the test, they'd be able to pass the test. The problem is that once they get further into the program, they're lost because they never learned anything to begin with. We knew there was a problem here where we had students that were making in the 90s. We rewrote the test and then they were making in the 40s. So we knew that there was an issue. You may record my lecture. It's, like I said in orientation, you may record it, just let me know you're doing so. And then I'll put on my big boy voice. Do not let me be the first one in the classroom, especially after break. I've got a bad habit of closing the doors when I come back from break. And then what happens is that when you come to the door, the people by the doors, just ignore them as they knock, and then I'll let them in, and then the person has to come up and do a dissertation for you, either on a topic that I give them on the spur of the moment, or one student, they said, I can't do that, so I had them sing and dance something out of Gone with the Wind or something, you know, the sound of music. There is a 45, 15-minute rule that I have. 45 minutes lecture, 15-minute break. It varies. My rule is the mind can only absorb as much as the butt can handle. And when you start wiggling, you're not listening. So I try to make it accordingly. Cell phones, please have them off. The most distracting thing is you have them on vibrate still, but I have people getting up and going because they got a message they have to answer right away. If you have an issue that you have to stay on top of, let me know so that I can expect that. But please, for 45 minutes, unless we have a life or death emergency, it's not a big deal. In most cases, that's not going to be a big difference, so please. However, if the cell phone does ring in the class, my rule is it's for me, and I get to answer it. I do. Everything in the test is in the PowerPoint and in your text. Well, almost everything's on the PowerPoint. I usually put about 90% on the PowerPoint. And I leave out a few questions that you can only find in your text. However, the PowerPoint refers you to the areas you need to go to, so it's not you're blindly searching for things. Yes, sir?
Everything's pulled from API.
Everything's pulled from API. No, something's pulled from API. However, the things pulled from API are also in your textbook. Okay. The API books that you have are not a bad resource to have as a follow-on to your text in the PowerPoint. Don't make that your primary study tool, but it's a good thing to have on hand as well. Thank you. The blueprint you will, yes ma'am?
Can I record today's lecture? Can I record today's lecture?
You may record today's lecture.
Where would it?
Hang on a minute. Okay, now you may record today's lecture.
Do you need to ask me everything?
We're already recording.
Ooh, no, just in the very beginning.
Okay. It's okay then?
It's okay.
Everybody has part one.
Everybody wants to record my lecture.
Thank you.
That does make me feel important. Yes, ma'am.
Same thing, recording.
Same. Oh, it takes pictures too?
Yeah.
Wait. No, this side. Okay. You will have a blueprint. I'm not sure if the first blueprint's up yet or not. But what happens is the blueprints come up after the last test is taken. So, for example, if you have a test on Monday at 1 o'clock, by 5 o'clock the blueprint's up for the next test. So you're able to use that as your guide. Blueprint is very vague. In the past, it used to be very specific, where I would say, okay, I want you to understand the signs and symptoms of the side effects of penicillin. Now, I mean, this may be on there, penicillin. Okay, well, you have to look at the whole gamut itself. I do put in little words that hopefully will guide you to the thing itself, but the PowerPoint, if you use that blueprint with your PowerPoint and your lecture, it draws you right into it. Okay, and all the blueprint did is to wrap up what you've been studying to begin with and kind of help you understand where you're going with those particular questions. Now, when you look on blueprint, some of the questions on, like question number 1 deals with such and such, and question number 2, but not all the blueprints are like that. Some of them are just general, where you'll be talking about anti-inflammatory medications, and I may be all over the gamut on the blueprint. So question number 1 may not be the signs and symptoms that's on there, but that'll be found maybe on question 5 or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay. What did I write here? Okay. The study guide will assist you. It is not required. I don't expect you to fill out each chapter and turn them in. This is not high school. This is not grade school. These are tools for you to use. These are for you. The study guide will help to wrap the chapters up as well. If you are able to answer the questions in the back in the study guide and the back of the chapter, you've got a good handle on the chapter. If you can't, you need to go back and revisit it, okay, to make sure you understand. That draw real quickly is that if you don't understand something when I'm giving in a lecture, please stop me and make me explain. If it takes more than a couple of minutes, what I will do is just have you hold on to it, and then when we go on break, I'll have you come up and talk. But most questions that people have, everybody else has the same question, but they're afraid to ask too. So go ahead and please ask it. I will interrupt and go into detail. And then I will go into further detail than what your text in that has in order for you to understand some of the concepts that we're going into. The bottom line is I treat you like adults.
Slammed the table.
You're in college, that's what I expect. I really do. My mother told me that respect everyone until they give you cause to do otherwise, and I do that. Those who don't want to listen in class and really don't want to pay attention, just be quiet where you are, and I will give the lecture to those who want to hear it. Here it is. Okay. Okay. Oh, I did that. That's my daughter's favorite movie. She can recite every line from every character. And when they got to the castle, when Dorothy was captured and the witch came into the big crystal ball, she'd run out of the house screaming. Until we finally told her to stop. But it's going to take some work on your part. This is not magic by any means. With work, you can command the material. I'm just going to read through these. I apologize again. We'll go on break here in a minute. I'll say if I can't read just these. Like I said, otherwise, read and scan the chapters prior to the lecture. Do not rely on the PowerPoints alone. You will miss stuff if you do that. You need to match it with the book itself. Don't just study for the test. Please study for understanding. You need to study for the test, and I understand that. And in some aspect, I teach to the test at some aspect, but at the same time, I'm teaching understanding. What'll happen, hopefully, as you go through this, as you go through the program, you'll be putting these pieces together and being able to critically think through an issue. Where you have a certain disease, okay, now you're given this medication for that disease, because you know what the illness is causing, you'll understand what the medication is trying to do the opposite, and how it's going to affect the body positively and negatively. You'll capture that as we go through this program. Review the PowerPoints, then validate information in the textbook. They go hand in hand. Study groups have been very successful in the past, if you all want to get together to do that. And then be prepared. There are 8 tests and 1 final. The test, 50-question test, final is 100 questions. We have ATI practice tests. Did Dr. Moore talk about ATI? She loves ATI. She talks more about it than anybody else. We have practice tests, and I'm going to double check. They should be available to you already on the ATItesting.com website. And you go in there, you should be able to find pharmacology test A and test B. Okay? What I asked you to do, and if you look on your syllabus, you will see that there are certain days that I expect you to do the tests or to hand them in. And one of them's coming up very shortly, and you haven't had any information whatsoever. I don't expect you to pass it very much. What the ATI does is it works for me to understand where you are with your understanding of the material. Are you grasping it or are you not? And I sit down after lecture and I go through all of your paperwork to see how each one of you are doing. The other thing it does is it helps you to get familiar with the way ATI asks the questions. ATI asks questions a little bit more difficult than the NCLEX does, but it's on the same line. NCLEX, they ask questions where you're going in one direction. It says, Mrs. Brown wears green pants on Monday, and then the beginning of the next question says Monday, and you go, oh, green pants. On the answer, no. It said Monday, she didn't have green pants, and therefore she had, that's how NCLEX will work with you. And these questions will help you to understand that. With the practice test, we have a focused review. That is, after you take the test, you're able to go in and review the areas that you missed or that you weren't very strong in. The thing that was brought up by ATI was that if you, how you do on your practice test, level 1, level 2, level 3, below level 1. Now, when you take your first test, if anyone gets above a level 2, I'll be very, very surprised. I expect most of them at below level 1 or at a level 1. I don't expect you at that point to start doing the focused reviews. I will tell you when I want you to do them. Is that right? Okay, so I will tell you. We are just starting. You don't have a clue what I'm going to be talking about. And to have you take a test and start reviewing on things we haven't even covered yet is kind of stupid. But I want you to get started to find out where your baseline is. I want you to understand where your baseline is, and I need to understand that as well. It's something of a wake-up call. Do not wonder or wander about the material. Make an appointment to see me, or come up to my office. If I ask to see you, please do not brush me off. Come and see me. It's important. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to come to my office. Unless you make really good cookies or something. But no, just make an appointment to see me. My job is to make you nurses. I do not weed you out. You guys will do that on your own without any problem whatsoever. I am here to help you to understand pharmacology and then to be able to use this practically in your clinical experience and then after you graduate as a nurse. That is my job. So if you don't understand something, please let me know that so that I can expound on that and help you to understand it. To be successful, you really need to understand normal anatomy and physiology. If you haven't had it for a while, but you still have your book, attach it to your hip. You will need it. When I go through the lectures, I do a brief review of A&P before we get into that classification of medication so you understand how it's working. But you need to understand that as well. For example, if we're talking about medications for the mind, psychotropic medications, and how they interfere with the connection between the nerves, you have to understand how that works and what's inside the synapses and how that generates an impulse from one nerve to the next. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Challenge me at every turn. I am serious. I am human. I make errors. I made one once, no, but I was wrong. I do make mistakes. I may talk out of, or maybe leading in a direction you shouldn't be going, and you're saying, hey, well, wait a minute, we shouldn't go there. Challenge me. Okay. If I'm giving a lecture on medication, you go, that's not that's all wrong. You're all messed up. That's not how that works. I give you the benefit of the doubt, and I give you 24 hours where you can research it and find the validation for your argument. Maybe in your textbook. Probably not. But if you find something, if you challenge me, I ask you to validate it. If you can validate it, what happens is that your name goes on my PowerPoint for that particular subject for the next year, as verbalized by, and then the student's name is listed on there. Now the other side to that, if you challenge me and you fail, you cannot challenge me the rest of the term. So you need to choose your battles well. I am fair and show no favoritism, however, cookies don't hurt. Oatmeal raisin are my favorite. I will do all I can to make you successful again. I will do that. I am your mentor. I am your teacher. Like we put in the orientation, I'm not your best friend. Though. I am not. There is a line between student and professor which I will not cross. But I will come as close as I can to help you to understand the process that we're going through. I'll discuss my theory on teaching that I learned from a professor the year he was retiring. And I'll share that at a later time. But I will do all that I can. But the biggest responsibility is you. The one thing that drives me nuts is rather than taking responsibility for your not studying or not trying to gather the information is blaming off on somebody else. If you don't understand or if you're just not getting it, please let me know. Some of you will get to that point. You'll get through this class and you'll say, I just don't get it. And you and I will have a long discussion about what your career field should be. Okay? And that's not a bad thing. It really isn't. I had a student one time who wanted to be a nurse really, really bad and could not. Was just the worst nursing student I ever had in my entire life. I called her in my office and I said, I think you better make a career change. This is not the place for you. Go off and find your way. And she was gone. A year and a half later, she came back to my office and said, thank you very much. I found my niche. She just graduated from auto body mechanic school, top in her class. She's now working in Phoenix, Arizona for Ford or one of the other ones doing auto body. She found her niche. Some of you want to be a nurse for various reasons. I never wanted to be a nurse when I first started off. I didn't. They have this thing called, well, some of you are really, really young, draft. I was being drafted into the Army. I slipped and went into the Air Force really quick. Only to end up in the Army later on. That's another story. But I had three choices. I could be a medic, I could be a cook, or I could be a cop. And I picked medic because that seemed the lesser of three evils. And then over the years, though, it grew on me. And it became a passion. 6 years into my career, I was pulled off to the side and a physician said, I'm going to send you to medical school. You to be a doctor. And I said, nope, I want to be a nurse. I want to impact people. I don't want to just give pills. Thank you very much, but have a nice day. And that's where I am today. I expect a great deal from you. I do. I expect nothing more, nothing less than A's across the board. Well, maybe C's. And then A's and B's will be good. That's like in baseball. What's a successful batting average? 250. 250. Everything else is gravy. Everything else is gravy. If you get 250 or you get a C and then you add on to that, it's even more wonderful. I have had students who struggled through this and barely got through it, but because they were struggling and spent more time studying and trying to figure it out, more time in my office, when they graduated, they understood more about the medication than maybe someone who just kind of slid through it. And then I said already, and that's that. It says, whenever I think of the past, it brings back many memories. That's a play on words, you know. Think of the past, memories. Hang on a minute, he'll come. And we're almost done with this. My phone's buzzing.